want to thank you for the honor, and thank you to all of you for coming out to support this better government competition. Public employees in Massachusetts participate in a defined benefit pension plan. So basically, after a full career, they're going to get a pension equal to 80% of their last 2 years of compensation. Rules are complicated, but it comes down to basically that. So for a typical example, a public employee retiring after a full career at a final compensation level of, say, $70,000 will go out with a pension of $56,000. Now, there's a handful of people who retire with much greater pensions. An administrator with a salary of $150,000 by the same 80% rule will retire with a pension of $120,000. Now, in Massachusetts, and this differs from some other states, the billions of dollars that state and local taxpayers contribute every year to the pension fund go mostly to cover legacy costs, not to cover currently generated liabilities. Today, employees contribute roughly 10% of their current compensation to support their future pension retirement. And those contributions are enough, in most cases, with the investment earnings that are going to go along with that, to pay for their retirements. That's provided that the stock market returns on those savings, in fact, are at least about 8% annually, on average, forever for the next few decades. Now, many don't believe that that's going to happen, and certainly nobody knows that that's going to happen. So what that means is that future taxpayers are at risk to cover the deficit if returns on those employee savings are more modest than 8% a year on average over the next few decades. So now the median straight-time earnings of a worker in Massachusetts is about $40,000. And very few of them have a defined benefit plan other than Social Security. So the nub of the problem is this, that it's politically unsustainable and perhaps really morally wrong to ask middle-income taxpayers whose savings, if they have any at all, are at risk in the marketplace to guarantee generous market returns to people who make more than they do. So that's the core of it. So what are the reforms that I put together? Basically 3 ideas: cap, share risk, and simplify. For new employees, cap pensionable compensation, like at around $40,000. So the maximum pension would work out to be 80% of that, or about $32,000, which is greater than the maximum Social Security benefit. It's comparable to the maximum Social Security benefit. To the extent they're making more than $40,000, contribute that, make contributions from that to a defined contribution plan, basically a savings plan. Now, what that would do is put public employees on essentially the same footing as private employees. They'd have their own defined benefit, which corresponds roughly to Social Security for the private employee, and then they have the opportunity to save in a tax-advantaged way, as private sector employees do. Now, in addition to restoring that fundamental parity, which I think is important to the credibility of government and important to our being able to move forward together, a cap goes a long way to reduce investment risk and mitigates the internal contradictions and potential for abuse in the system, just because much less is at stake. Second idea, cap is first. Second, share risk. If the stock market returns aren't what they expect to be, employee contributions shall go up. We've tied ourselves up legally in Massachusetts. We did it on purpose in the 50s, so that once an employee is on the books, we can't change their benefits and we can't increase their contributions. That's the way we tie ourselves up. But we don't have to tie ourselves up. Our laws don't force us to do that. And for new employees, the proposal says, creates an automatic, predictable mechanism for adjusting employee contributions to keep the plan in actuarial balance, further reducing the risk for future taxpayers. The third idea is simplify. We have 106 different pension administrations in Massachusetts. They're all governed in an overarching way by the PARAC Commission, but we have 166 different administrative units. And matrixed across those, we have 7 different classes of employees, and a lot of additional special rules which pertain to subsets of those employees. By contrast, we have a single Social Security system for 300 million Americans, and we don't do different deals for different employees. So we should be able to consolidate and standardize our pension system for the few hundred thousand state and local employees we have in Massachusetts And that's what this proposal would do, is for new employees, basically put them in a single system, subject to a single set of much simpler rules. Now, from an employee standpoint, one thing that this proposal also does is provide better income protection from inflation. One of the actual problems in our system today is that and this applies really to low-income employees. If you have a $60,000 pension or $120,000 pension, you can absorb some inflation. But if you have a $15,000 pension or a $25,000 pension, it's a lot harder to absorb some inflation. And lower-income employees are really at risk of outliving the viability of their pensions in the inflation environment, to the extent that it is a problem, which it isn't right now. Now, in a simplified risk-sharing environment with capped pensions, we can adjust employee contributions to assure that every pension, the much more modest pension, is fully protected from inflation. So that's a part of the proposal which addresses the other side of the problem from the pension system. So by legal, moral, political necessity, this proposal only applies to new employees. It doesn't clear away our unfunded liabilities. So, but if you're in a hole, stop digging. Let's set ourselves in a course that in a few decades will give us a more robust, defensible, fair, transparent system. That's what this proposal would do if we were actually to adopt it. Now, the elements of this proposal are not original. It builds on work done by the Pioneer Institute itself, by the Mass Taxpayers Foundation, Mike Widmer, by my colleagues in the legislature, especially Jay Kaufman, the last chair of the Public Service Committee, the Blue Ribbon Commission, Alicia Manel, Peter Diamond, the staff of the Public Employee Retirement Administration Commission. They're very good, and many public employee representatives. So I don't think the judges chose this for its originality, but I hope that what the judges liked about it included that A, it really does fully address the package of economic and legal realities that surround our pension system. B, it simplifies. We can't have trust without transparency. We can't have transparency without simplicity. I mean, a complex system is intrinsically opaque and hard to trust. And the last thing I hope they liked was that it's a surgical proposal. It's arguably very radical, but in fact, it carefully, surgically preserves most of the existing structure of the pension system. And by so doing, all the huge investment we've made over decades on part of litigants and as well as the state itself to resolve all the uncertainties in how you interpret pension plans and so forth. So one last thing that's good about it in the sense of being surgical is that because it's surgical, because it doesn't jettison the whole existing system but makes big changes in it, is that it can be adopted piecemeal. So that cap element is a very significant element, and it's also an extremely simple element to implement legislatively. My hope is that that's one of the things we'll be able to inject into the pension reform proposal, this process that the legislature is moving forward with over the next few weeks and months. Then we can have a real conversation about what that cap should really be to greatly reduce risk, make the changes we want to make, but at the same time make sure that we continue to recruit good people to the public sector. So I really appreciate your giving me the opportunity to speak to you about the proposal, and I'll get out of the way for the main infraction here.